The relationship between law enforcement and the Black community in the United States has been fraught with tension and mistrust for generations. At the heart of this complex issue lies the persistent problem of police misconduct, which has profoundly far reaching consequences for Black individuals, families, and communities. Police misconduct encompasses a wide range of behaviors that violate legal, ethical, or professional standards. These behaviors can manifest in various ways, including excessive force, racial profiling, false arrest, police brutality, verbal abuse and harassment, and corruption. The roots of police misconduct and its impact on the Black community can be traced back to the institution of slavery and Jim Crow. During these periods, law enforcement agencies often served as tools of oppression, enforcing discriminatory laws and maintaining the racial hierarchy. The impact of police misconduct is felt acutely by the Black community, where encounters with law enforcement are often marked by fear, suspicion, and a sense of vulnerability. Studies have consistently shown that Black individuals are more likely to be stopped, searched, arrested, and subjected to use of force by police than their white counterparts. Which brings us to this particular story right here. And I'm going to expand further on the other side of this video. Fair use. Without further ado, DJ, spin that shit.
When this happened back in 2018, Keith Sylvester immediately told me he was innocent and had nothing to do with the death of his mother and stepfather. Now, Fox 5 News has learned the city of Atlanta will soon settle a case with Sylvester in the coming days. Keith Sylvester says this mugshot should have never been taken, and he should not have been arrested for strangling his mom, Deborah, and stepfather, Harry Hubbard.
Is to authorize the settlement of all claims.
5.5 years later, Atlanta's Public Safety Committee is contemplating an ordinance that could lead to Sylvester receiving $1.5 million for his wrongful arrest. Back in 2018, Sylvester allowed Fox 5 to get pictures of him putting up arson signs in hopes of finding the real killer. 6 months after the deadly fire, Sylvester was arrested on 2 counts of murder and arson and spent almost 14 months in confinement before detectives finally solved this heinous crime. The innocent son is grateful the actual accused killer, Cornelius Muckle, is behind bars. Fulton County DA officials told Fox 5 Muckle's cell phone was actually at the house during the crime. They also say Muckle pawned items from the Hubbards' home 2 days after the murders. Neighbor Brandon Graham told Fox 5 Sylvester always maintained his innocence, and he is glad the system finally revealed the truth.
He had a loving relationship with his mother and with his family, period. So to find that out, that we do have a suspect finally that's not him, is a great thing.
After this measure leaves public safety, it will be up to the full council to give its final approval. In Northwest Atlanta, Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
Now, we're going to talk about the individual on the right, but before we get to him, the 2 individuals that you see on the left were the victims of this heinous crime. Deborah Hubbard, she was 65 years old, and the stepfather and the husband, Harry Hubbard, who was 67. They were found inside the burning home in Northwest Atlanta in July 2018. Now, Sylvester said that he helped investigators all he could, even spending nights without sleeping. 5 months after the incident, he was charged with murder, accused of committing the crime in a bid for insurance money. Charges against Sylvester were dropped in March 2020 after evidence pointed to the suspect that you saw on the video, who has been tried, convicted, and pretty much gonna get put away. Well, I take that back. He's now facing trial for those murder charges. Now, Keith Sylvester filed a lawsuit in 2019. for the wrongful arrest. In a 2020 interview, Keith Sylvester told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that he thought officers were playing the trick on him to get more information when he was arrested. Sylvester's lawsuit against Atlanta police investigators James Barnett, the white guy that you see on the right, was dismissed in 2022, but later revived by a federal appeals court in March. Court records showed that James Barnett omitted key facts in his affidavit in the arrest warrant. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that a reasonable jury could find that Barnett intentionally or recklessly left out information that exonerated Sylvester, and that if they had been corrected, his reasoning for arresting Sylvester in the first place failed to establish even arguable probable cause. When Detective Barnett submitted his affidavit, a great deal of evidence tending to exonerate Sylvester had already come to light. Yet none of that evidence was included in an affidavit. So this man here is withholding evidence that would have had a man who was innocent free from. This man shouldn't even got charged in the first place. Keith Sylvester shouldn't even gotten charged in the first place. And yet, did anything happen to this man? Because look, when you file a police report, that is a sworn and legal binding document. When you lie on the police reports, that's perjury. That's perjury. What's up, Bulls fan 25? Alex Heron, salute to you. Hey, Alex, thank you for the birthday wishes earlier today, man. I appreciate it. This man committed perjury. This is police misconduct. And has he gotten his badge and gun taken from him? No. Has he gotten prosecuted? No. Did he at the very least lose his job as a police officer? No. And that's the problem I have. This man who engaged in this kind of misconduct, this gross, negligent misconduct, get to go home to his family, and yet the person he went after is suffering and being put away in prison, doing time in the pokey over the crime he didn't commit, because this man did not do his job properly. And that's disgusting. A spokesperson for the Atlanta Police Department said previously it does not comment on pending litigation, asked for comment on the settlement of the department, said only Barnett is still employed as an investigator. According to Georgia Police Officer Standards and Training Council, Georgia Peace Officer, not police, Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council records, Barnett was hired as a police officer in October 2005 before being promoted to investigator in April 2010. He has no disciplinary history. So the fuck what? If he has no disciplinary history or whatever. He committed misconduct right there. Because you got an innocent man rotting away in prison before other detectives had to come up and clean up his fucking mess. So make it make sense. This man should have his gun and badge taken away from him. He has no business being a police detective. How could you sit up there and grossly miss evidence that pointed to another person? There was a cell phone that was left on the floor in the house. The man pawned the victim's property and got money from that. How could you miss that as a detective? Cornelius Muckle, who authorities said pawned several items belonging to the Hubbards 2 days after the deaths, was indicted on felony murder and other charges in October 2021. His trial is scheduled for October 3rd. So again, you have a gross misconduct where crucial evidence had been either intentionally or recklessly left out. And yet, this man is still employed as a police detective. He ain't even got demoted. It'd be one thing the way if this guy got prosecuted, got fired, and you know he get to do time in prison for misconduct, right? But this man didn't even get demoted. And this is why I have a problem with this whole system. So if you lie on the stand as a citizen, you get brought up, you get hit up for perjury, you can do time in prison. But a police officer can lie on police affidavits. He can go out and commit perjury and nothing happens to them. Make it make sense. Exactly, Bulls fan 25. Exactly. He has no history that we know of. He has no history that we know of. Because, granted, there's been many instances where police has engaged in misconduct, but it somehow does not make it to their file or their personnel record. Gets swept under the rug. If you followed the case out there in New York City, Edward Caban, the former police commissioner, he had a history of doing that. Police get involved in misconduct, he would take it on, and then somehow miraculously it gets swept under the rug, or they get a slap on the wrist, or whatever like that. Right? This is unacceptable. And then the $1.5 million is not like it's coming out of this man's personal bank account. It's not like he has to pay for it. It's the taxpayers that's paying for that. So there's of accountability that's going to be sent towards this man. None. He's not paying for that. The taxpayers is paying that $1.5 million settlement. And this is why we need to end qualified immunity. It needs to be a nationwide qualified immunity ban, not just in certain counties or in other municipalities. It needs to be like a nationwide ban on ending on qualified immunity ending, because this is unacceptable. For real. They said that on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, this was their ruling. I'm going to read this again. A reasonable jury could find that Barnett intentionally or recklessly left out information that exonerated Keith Sylvester, and that if they had been corrected, his reasoning for arresting Sylvester in the first place fails to establish even arguable probable cause. This is textbook misconduct on this man's part, and nothing's going to happen to him. He's not going to get fined. Hell, the guy is not even going to get a goddamn demotion. Hell, for all we know, this might not even make it on his fucking record for all we know. And it's disgusting. And it's unacceptable. But this is the type of stuff that don't make the news. This is the type of stuff that don't get the traction on YouTube. This is the type of stuff that when we bring this to our elected officials, the people that tell us that we got to vote for them because if we vote for them, then they promise that they're going to do this, that, and the third, right? Because see, your Roland Martins is not going to cover this. He'll have a whole bunch of bucket naked booty man going down the tunnel of love, but he's not going to cover this. Ricky Smiley will dress like a bitch, talk like a bitch, and then talk down on you for not voting for Kamala Harris, but he's not going to talk about this. Charlatan the Fraud and Angela Rye and all these other sip-ass motherfuckers and these other bedwenches out here in the Democratic Party beat you to death of the vote for their candidate, but yet they won't talk about no shit like this. Tamika Mallory will sell your ass up the river, but she won't be having feet on the ground going off about this man being wrongfully put in prison amongst the other black men and black women that's doing time for football numbers over crimes that they commit. Anyway. Fuck dancers, man. Coons, sellouts. I can't stand none of you motherfuckers, man. I swear to fucking God, man. Lord. You piss me off every time your goddamn name come out my mouth. It really gets under my fucking skin. Anyway, so again, this is where we at in this society right now. Where we have this type of activity continues to go on and nothing is being done about it. Nothing. Because I even talked about how the lawyers get involved in misconduct, right? What do you think what happened to Breonna Taylor? That bullshit ass warrant that Judge Mary Shaw signed that resulted in, because again, you have police misconduct going on there. You had the judge commit misconduct by signing that bullshit ass warrant that resulted in an innocent black woman being murdered in her own home. And her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was going to take the fall for that until a judge who should be held in high regard in Olu Stevens saw the scam for what it was and called it up for what it was and said that we're not going to be no railroading going on in my courtroom. And out from that fiasco, somebody got charged with wanton endangerment. No thanks to that fucking idiot Kentucky Fried Coon made from 11 herbs and spices and Daniel Cameron. Because see, it's not just Democrats that do, Republicans do it too. It's two wings on the same bird, different fangs on the same snake. Whatever make your bacon sizzle, that's the same goddamn result. I mean, how much more do we gotta take? How much more bullshit that we gotta be subjected to before somebody decides to stand up and do something about this bullshit? Not just from a local level, not just on the state level, but on a federal level. We can't get the stuff we demanding, and yet these sip-ass motherfuckers I ain't want to call themselves trying to browbeat me and to vote for these motherfuckers that don't give a fuck about us. The fuck out of here. Ain't no fucking way. Now, this the thing, right? If you have a problem with how I'm saying it and how outraged I am because this bullshit continues on, then this ain't the channel for you, because the one thing I ain't gonna do is cater no motherfucker's feelings, because the truth don't care about your feelings. The fact of the matter is this bullshit still continues, and no money and no amount of I'm sorry's or whatever like that is going to get this man's time back. The people who die in prison for being falsely accused of a fucking crime they didn't commit, some I'm sorry letter is not going to bring them back. What really needs to happen is there needs to be punishment for people who holds a position of power, whether it be in politics, whether it be in the judicial system or in law enforcement, who willfully engage in misconduct. Don't matter if your first time or your 100th time. Because you let these white supremacists tell it, hey, when it comes to athletes, they need to be held to a higher standard. Well, why would we put that same principle? Why won't we take that same principle and apply that to the doctors, to the lawyers, to the police officers, to the firefighters, to the judges? Because they hold your life in their hands more so than any damn athlete that's dribbling a basketball or catching a football or swinging a baseball or swinging a hockey puck. Yet this man can continue on, draw paychecks from the taxpayer, get to go home to his family, right? All that stuff. And this man here committing this goddamn misconduct. Mr. Barnett, fuck you. Because you know exactly what the fuck you doing. And this man, I can guarantee, I probably have it on faith that this man didn't even take the time out to reach out to Mr. Sylvester and apologize to him for that bullshit he did. He probably didn't even apologize to that man for that bullshit he did. If you feel like you're in a giving mood, there's the Cash App, there's the PayPal. Any and all donations are accepted and appreciated. I thank everybody for tuning in. If you're not subscribing to this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and share these videos on your social media platforms. Last but definitely not least, shouts out to the mighty Lions Den basketball community. This your man. Scream at me. Ho!